During the 90s, Morristown was growing a ton. Folks said, we gotta slow this down.
The town needs to grow. That's what we need. We need business.
When you get a lot more people in a small area, there's going to be problems.
That means showing up at public forums. That means serving on your local committees. That means calling your legislators. We will figure out how to wrestle with all of these challenges and keep building a vibrant, thriving future.
Morristown has become more and more of the economic center, and it's lost some of its identity of rural Vermont.
This place has grown and changed over the decades. Track how long you've been here by how many stoplights were here in Morrisville when you first drove through. Do you remember it before the McDonald's?
In about 1959, myself and O'Neill DeMars and a few young fellows all went in the business of expanding their commercial activities in Morrisville.
When I first moved here, there were no shopping centers. Monash hadn't moved out to the fairground yet. Wolcott was a smaller town than it is. Johnson was a smaller town than it is.
During the 90s, Morristown was growing a ton, right? The big supermarkets were going in. The whole north side of town got really built out. All those were farmer fields. Now there's all those shopping plazas that are there. And so there was that pendulum swing where folks said, we gotta slow this down. This is not our town. But what happened is that the pendulum swing was arguably too far in one direction. It really stifled development.
If you don't have a business in town, that's tax revenue. These are things that make towns work.
We've taken on many new streets and sidewalks, and you're having to plow those and sand them and salt them and maintain them. And that money has to come from somewhere.
What you saw in Morristown, by the time we got to like 2000, 2010, the town was looking not good. There were vacant buildings in town. This very building that we're sitting in right now in 2010, the upstairs was open to the air. It was vacant. There was nothing in here. We said, we need to rezone Morrisville. We need to change our stance on these things, or we're not gonna have development here that works.
Where Howard Monash developed two plazas, a crossroad. When I grew up here where Hannaford's is, that was the drive-in theater. Across the way was nothing but meadow. Could you imagine Morrisville right now without that? Could you imagine not having those services?
We got the Arthur's block revitalized and renovated. Lemoyle Housing Partnership did a bunch of projects in town. This building was a building that not only had tax credits, but then a local landlord who does a lot of projects like this came in and rebuilt it. And that's this storefront and 7 units of housing. I have really complicated feelings about it because it's not the same around here. Morristown is not that very rural town anymore. It is, but it's also, it's the big little town.
Is it nice to have shopping that we might find elsewhere, close by? Sure, but that's not everything. I mourn for the loss of the farms. I mourn for some of the openness that I was able to experience when I came here.
to me, it doesn't have that same small town feel.
I grew up here driving down Bridge Street and what it was. My brother was here that hadn't been here in 10, 15 years. We're driving up and down that street and he goes, oh man, they've really cleaned this street up.
I don't want to see massive change where we lose our sense of community and who we are, but I still think there's a way that we can grow as a community.
If the town needs to grow, that's what we need. We need business.
There's a sense from many in the legislature that Vermonters only really want to see development in downtowns and village centers, places that are already populated, and that we don't want to see houses just popping up in rural Vermont.
To find that balance, I think we need to have thoughtful conversations about, well, what are some of the targets? How much housing do we need? How many jobs? How much business growth do we need to have?
We have a great crop of up-and-coming local entrepreneurs. We want to encourage those folks and help them grow, because what they're doing is they're providing jobs for the future.
It's really grown in the last 5 to 7 years.
We're allowing the town to grow too fast without, I think, proper infrastructure. When you get a lot more people in a small area, there's going to be problems. And that's just a fact of life.
You look at the police department, the incident numbers that we're running, it's a lot different than it was 10 years ago. Same with EMS, fire, the highway department with the roads.
I live right down by where Garrett Herchek wants to put in development.
That's going to be a 30-plus unit industrial park over a couple 100-acre campus, and we'll change town.
You're going to have the growth somewhere. I'd rather see a thriving industrial park than to drive down the road another mile and a half and see nothing but solar panels. You got an airport across the road. It was already zoned to be there.
Just because we can do something doesn't always mean we should do that.
In terms of amending some pretty historic land use proposals around Act 250 and housing, those will have significant impact across rural Vermont and our industries, our ability for rural Vermonters to stay in rural Vermont, to afford to be able to use their land.
I trust the wisdom in the room that when Vermonters show up, we will figure out how to wrestle with all of these challenges that our small rural communities are facing and keep building a vibrant, thriving future. That means showing up at public forums, that means serving on your local committees, that means calling your legislators.
This place is going to change, it's going to evolve, and if you want to be part of that change, you can influence that change, and you should be part of seeing the change you want to see.
You can't just say it's got to be my way or the highway. You got to be able to communicate and get together, and I think Morristown will bring it back together.
Morristown's future belongs to everyone who calls it home. You can help shape that future. Show up when it matters, share the episodes, call or write your legislators, and join the conversation. Morristown, a tale as old as time, is a thank you to the communities of Lamoille County and the state of Vermont. From Guy's Farm and Yard.